Good evening. I would like to talk about the subject of should older guys train or lift heavy? Should older guys train or lift heavy? You know, should a guy in their 40s or a guy in their 50s train or lift heavy? You know, what do people mean when they say lift heavy or train heavy? You know, first off, I really think a lot of guys that are older now who say, you know, really against trying to lift or train heavy or do strength work. I think when their younger days, when they were in their prime, one reason they did a lot of PEDs, and so when they get older, you know, they really don't want to face how weak they would actually be without the use of PEDs. You know, all their training they always used PEDs and depended on PEDs. And so they really don't want to face the reality of how, you know, weak they actually are without PEDs. And of course, I'll be 56 here in a few days, and I competed in the ADFPA, the American Drug-Free Powerlifting Association, from 1988 to 1991, you know, from just after I stopped being a teenager, you know, from about 20 years old to about 24 years old. And I had a 685 raw deadlift and a 445 raw bench. So I'll be 56 in a few days, and I'm still lifetime natty. And so I'll be the first to tell you that, you know, my lifts now aren't what they were then. Okay, but I am, you know, facing the music and facing the reality. But I got a comment a month or so back on one of my videos where I was doing a pause single on the squat, and the comment was something to the effect of, you know, hey, at your age, you really shouldn't be, you know, trying to go heavy. You should just be leaving one plate on the bar and doing a bunch of reps and, you know, try to look good. And you know, I really don't care how people train. People can train however they want to train. I think you should train in line with whatever your goals are. If you don't want to train heavy, that's fine with me. But I would like to define what training heavy actually means, or at least what, you know, I define as training heavy. And this video will be for people who would like to train heavy, you know, want to train heavy, desire to train heavy. It's fun to train heavy. You know, I enjoy both training heavy and I enjoy training for hypertrophy. You know, not that the two are mutually exclusive, but you know, I enjoy moving heavier weights, relatively heavier weights for me at my age, and I enjoy doing, you know, sets of 10 submaximal for hypertrophy. I like them both. You know, I like, you know, always with good form. But you know, what do people mean when they say you shouldn't train heavy? You know, I think they mean you shouldn't do strength work. Should you train for strength? You know, do they mean you shouldn't do low reps? Do they mean you shouldn't grind? Do they mean you shouldn't go above a certain percentage of your 1 rep max, whatever that is? Do they mean that, you know, you shouldn't go above a certain RPE, that everything you do should be really relatively easy? And I would like to define training heavy as should older guys train for strength on variations of the heavy compound movements, you know, variations of the squat, variations of the bench, variations of the deadlift, variations of the overhead press, you know. And, you know, my answer is, you know, why not? Why shouldn't older guys train heavy or train for strength? And I think with a few exceptions, a lot of the same rules that apply to younger guys when training heavy or training for strength also apply to older guys, okay? And so one of these things I would like to mention is that should you train for strength or should you train heavy if you have pain or an injury? Now, the likelihood of having pain or an injury or being susceptible to pain or an injury goes up as you get older, okay? But let's say providing you don't have pain or an injury that prohibits you from training or lifting heavy or doing strength work, then, why shouldn't you train heavy? Now, I think what happens with a lot of older guys, myself included, I lifted heavy from, I trained heavy. I competed in drug-free powerlifting. I was nationally ranked. I was a pretty strong guy. And about almost a 700-pound deadlift. 685 officially in a meet. Did 660 for a double. I did a 445 pause raw bench in a meet. Still a teenager, and I trained like that for 1983 to 1992, the time I was in 10th grade till 1992. And but what happens with a lot of older guys is sometimes they think that they have an injury or they have pain, and the pain is not actually an injury. It's a lack of mobility. It's a muscle imbalance or a muscular weakness. So it's just an area they need to work on. You need to work on mobility. When I started barbell benching again a couple years back, I just started with the bar. I would do my dumbbell bench work because the dumbbells were a lot more forgiving with range of motion. It was easier on my shoulders and everything, but I wanted a barbell bench. And so when I finished all my dumbbells, I would take the bare barbell and I would do 3 sets of 10, and I would just work on my range of motion and my mobility. And I did the same thing with overhead press. and so that's what you need to do. And then I started working on weak areas, like when I was competing in powerlifting. And after that, I never trained directly my shoulders. I never trained my rear delts. So I had a lot of pain. I thought it was injury, but it was really a muscle imbalance and a muscular weakness and a lack of mobility. So, we can work on these areas. So sometimes, we may think that it's pain or an injury, but it's not necessarily. We need to examine, is it lack of mobility? Is it a muscular weakness? Is it a muscular imbalance? Or is it a legitimate injury or pain? And, I've had my share of injuries, at least muscle tears, okay? I mean, not where the tendon or ligament tear off the bone, but, pulled hamstrings, pulled quads, pulled pecs. So anyhow, another thing, now this applies whether you're a younger guy or an older guy, but the older you get, the more careful you have to be with this. If you want to train heavy, because it's fun to train heavy, it's interesting to train heavy, it's an objective way to measure your progress. Are you getting stronger, providing all the variables are the same? The stronger you become, the better you become on strength work, the higher weights you can use for your hypertrophy work, which results in better hypertrophy training or muscular training, muscular development training. And so, I believe that, training heavy contributes and gives you better muscle quality and muscle density. So, but the older you get, the more you have to gradually condition yourself to train heavy. When I first started training again, at an older age, I would just do, higher reps, 12 reps, 15 reps, 17 reps, and, got, 10 reps, sets of 10, but after a while, I'd cut it down, every once in a while, I'd do a set of 7, and, not max, not grind, smooth, snappy. I don't believe that it's good for people of any age to train heavy all the time. In other words, 95% of your 1 rep max, grinding out singles, grinding out doubles, grinding out triples. I don't believe that it's beneficial performance-wise or health-wise for a natural or anybody of any age to be, regularly grinding out, low rep, heavy sets. I think it needs to be tapered in there. I think it needs to be mixed in there. Very little of the overall volume of our weekly training needs to be devoted to strength work for it to be effective. It can just be a couple of heavy sets a week on a variation of the compound movements, a triple in the squat, a set of 5 in the squat, a single in the squat. And I don't mean a max 5 reps. I don't mean a max triple. I don't mean a max double. I don't mean a max single. I mean a smooth, snappy single or a smooth, snappy triple. We have reps in reserve, never grinding, okay? But so very little of the total volume of our training needs to be devoted to strength work for it to be effective. And make sure that we gradually condition ourselves to training heavier. Don't, when you're younger, I have to admit that you can get away with a lot more. You can max out, probably not gonna have any problems, but older you get, you need to be careful. You need to be more careful on maxing out, okay? I don't, unless you're gonna go to a contest, a meet, or just, test your strength, test your 1 rep max every once in a while. But other than that, do not grind, do not max, okay? Keep your strength work snappy. Keep it smooth. Keep reps in reserve, okay? Keep a rep or 2 in the tank. Another thing we need to do, I think we need to do it as whether you're a younger lifter or an older lifter, but especially an older lifter, is we need to have more variety in our training, like the conjugate method does, rotate the lifts, I practice squatting wide one week and I practice squatting narrow the next week. And every week I change the bar. I squat wide with 1 bar and then narrow with the same bar the next week. And then I change bars and I repeat that. Squat wide 1 week and squat narrow 1 week. And then I change the bar again. And with the bench, I do the same thing. I change the bars, I change the angles of the bench, and I change my grips. So anyway, that will prevent overuse and fatigue and wear and tear on the muscles. So again, do not grind. Keep your strength set smooth and snappy with reps in reserve. Okay. As an older lifter, especially, you need to take more time warming up. I remember, of course now I can't really jump a plate, keep jumping plates for set after set after set like I did when I was younger. I wish I could, but I'm not that strong anymore. But instead of taking, 90-pound jumps, 70-pound jumps, 80-pound jumps, I might take a few 50-pound jumps when I start warming up, and then I just start taking 30-pound jumps. And the closer I get to my top set, whether it's going to be a top triple, a top double, a top single, or a top set of 5, then I start jumping like 20, 15, 10, however I feel, whatever I feel. I need to, allowing my CNS to be primed, to be activated, to where it's fully engaged, it's not asleep. So it takes, I don't know why, but I know it does. When the older you get, it takes a lot longer to get your central nervous system warmed up, adapted, and primed. So, just as a final word, gradually condition yourself to work up to heavier weights and lower reps. Stay away from the grinding. Keep variation in there. Rotate the compounds. And I don't understand. People have this mentality that I'm not a power lifter now, but it seems like if you once competed in powerlifting, then you're no matter what you do, regardless of how you train, you're always going to be a power lifter in some people's eyes. And I don't know, people think that all powerlifters do is just do 1 rep maxes on the 3 competition lifts in the competition style. And I guess there's maybe some people that do that, but not too many. If they do it, they don't do it for too long. And if they're successful, it's exception and not the rule. So rotate the variations, rotate the bars, rotate the angles, rotate the grip width, rotate the stance width, and then just do little percentage of your total volume of training be devoted to strength work. 1 to 2 sets a week on the heavy variations of the compound movements. Okay. Thank you very much for listening. I wish everyone all the best in their training.